Just a month ago, no one could believe this, but today it is the harsh Russian reality. Having previously attacked Ukrainian territory almost with impunity, now Russia itself is experiencing the arrival of ballistic and cruise missiles.
It can be applied close, meaning its maximum range will be 300 kilometers. We are already talking about the Krasnodar region.
The results of the first strikes and the prospects opened up for the Ukrainian armed forces by Washington and European leaders permission to strike Russia. What Russia managed to take out of the line of fire and which targets will certainly be destroyed. Watch right now on Arsenal. The very first strike with British missiles on Russia marked the complete failure of the Russian air defense. According to some reports, 2 out of 12 missiles were shot down, while others claim none were intercepted. The results of this strike on the command post in the Kursk region were phenomenal. 500 North Korean soldiers and several dozen Russian officers were eliminated. Hundreds of military personnel were injured. But following the British missiles, American ballistic missiles were launched a few days later. In the same Kursk region, first the Kursk-Vostochny airfield was attacked, and later the Halina air base.
This is an airfield near Kursk? Where military aircraft are based and civilian planes also take off from there.
Each such strike on Russian territory is a small tactical victory. This is not a turning point in the war. Well, yesterday a large strategic arsenal of the Russians was destroyed. If another and another and another such arsenal is destroyed, these are missiles, these are drones. This means less and less damage that the Russians can inflict on the front, so it's not a matter of weeks or even months for such a thing to work. It is certainly working. I think that with each passing day, thanks to this decision, it will be easier for people to fight on the front. Fewer bombs, fewer lancets fall on them. Rive.
And this is just the beginning, experts believe. The capabilities to strike and penetrate Russian air defenses are only being explored by the Ukrainian General Staff now. Meanwhile, analysts are already eagerly creating maps with zones where Western missiles can reach. Moreover, it seems this trend was set out of fear. The Russians themselves.
If it functions effectively, for instance, from deep within Ukraine, somewhere near Kiev or Vinnytsia and Kryvyi Rih, then cities like Kursk and Rostov-on-Don will fall within its range. It's clear that all of these frontline areas, such as Luhansk and Donetsk, Kherson, Zaporizhzhia regions, if they dare to move it somewhere in the Dnipropetrovsk region, for example, its range will be even further. That means cities like Voronezh, Tula will be within reach. Crimea will be within reach. It can even be used very close by. That is, its maximum range will be 300 kilometers. Then we are talking about the Krasnodar region.
Thus, the Russian Federation assesses the current capabilities of the Ukrainian armed forces. Speaking of the American ballistic missiles ATACMS, we currently officially have missiles in the MGM-140A modification, with a strike range of about 1,500 kilometers. This means that a dozen military airfields are under threat in Crimea, Voronezh, Kursk, Bryansk, and a number of other cities.
There are facilities that you simply cannot move anywhere. In general, this is immovable property. Headquarters, some communications, warehouses, repair bases, storage bases of equipment where people are located. That is, there are many targets that can be hit, causing significant harm to the enemy.
Moreover, even considering that Russia has relocated most of its aircraft deeper into the country, the ATACMS strikes still create enormous, often insurmountable problems for enemy aviation.
It is now widely known that the Russians have strategically relocated those strategic airfields that were previously within the effective range of ATACMS, specifically with a firing range of 185 to 506 kilometers, way beyond the boundaries of this area. But we understand that by moving the airfields 300 kilometers away, it reduces the operational capabilities of the aircraft, and especially helicopters, because they need to fly 300 kilometers to the front line and back. And I don't even really know how to solve this problem for helicopters.
Meanwhile, within the missile range, the enemy is completely deprived of the ability to amass forces and equipment.
What is the peculiarity of ATACMS? Cluster. Warhead. That is, they explode and cover an area of about 1 square kilometer. And they hit all of the various different pieces of equipment concentrated in that area.
Another significant and complex major threat facing the Kremlin is the logistics of the grouping in Ukraine. Now, any centralized supply of ammunition, food, or reserve transport indeed turns into a lottery.
Besides the logistics base, these are, in any case, the locations of personnel. These are command points that are located quite deep in the rear. This may also include strikes on various infrastructure objects, including bridges.
Speaking of another ace up the sleeve of the armed forces of Ukraine, they have become the Scalp and stormshadow missiles. The British-French development flies for 300 kilometers and covers twice the area. This includes Anapa, Volgodonsk, Lipetsk, and even Tula, where there are also many interesting military targets for the Ukrainian army.
The same applies to Russian depots, Russian command points, and other strategic facilities, since currently they are directly in the crosshairs, and the impact of such a missile. It completely destroys even well-prepared deep command posts such as these.
At the same time, despite the Russians' claims of shooting down the stormshadow, in reality, there were hits. Therefore, the stories about the omnipotence of the Russian air defense once again turned out to be a myth.
They cannot shoot down, create faster acting systems that would react faster, fly faster, and be controlled faster. That is, that they need to have faster processes and more advanced and sophisticated, faster computers that would calculate the trajectory in order to destroy these missiles. They simply cannot do this.
Meanwhile, having received additional carriers for these aviation missiles in the form of Western fighters, some analysts do not rule out that the missiles have also changed. From the export version, with a range of 300 kilometers, to the internal British-French version, with a range of up to 1,000 kilometers.
Previously, they were launched from Su-24 aircraft. Now they say that F-16 aircraft can be used. And this also gives us many opportunities to launch these missiles. And again, the firing range. This will be a surprise for the enemy, but I think it could be more substantial than the export version. At 300 kilometers, this will seriously and significantly affect the enemy's capabilities, both in terms of their immediate combat units and in terms of logistics and overall effectiveness.
At the same time, the additional charm of the Scalps and Stormshadow is that they are not Russian developments that hit randomly. In conclusion, therefore, for positive results, a relatively small number of missiles and aircraft are needed.
A huge number of launch systems are needed for their use. Launch systems for them. Several units of such aircraft, up to 10. Because this weaponry is not mass-produced, and it is necessary specifically for the precise destruction of enemy targets.
We will see very soon what specific targets these will become. After all, we did not stop striking Russia even after Putin's attempt to respond with his own forces. If you like this video, then don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to our new Arsenal channel. The link is in the description below the video. These are the best missiles that the Allies have provided us since the start of the full-scale war. practically unreachable for enemy air defenses. Capable of penetrating any bunker, the stormshadow missiles continue to tally successfully hit Russian targets. And this count is already in the dozens. The history of its creation is quite long. Essentially developed based on the French Apache missile in the mid-90s, the stormshadow entered service in the early 2000s. The air-launched missile was intended for tactical aviation aircraft such as fighter jets, which is why its use today is possible with any multi-role fighter. Its main advantage for Ukraine is its low visibility and a range of up to 300 kilometers. There is also a version with a range of 560 kilometers. But according to open sources, such versions have not yet been delivered to Ukraine. And 300 kilometers more than adequately cover key targets in the territories occupied by Russia. Incidentally, even beyond those areas, which is why there was already a panic in Rostov.
Please kindly show us the specific Russian and Belarusian cities that fall within the potential strike range.
But for striking targets on Russian territory, we have other weapons, so Olenka's efforts were in vain. However, against those invaders who came to Ukraine, they will definitely be used, including the stormshadow. And they will fly with extreme precision. The missile has a combined guidance system, which practically eliminates the chance of missing even a moving target. However, the primary mission for these missiles is the destruction of command posts, logistics, and concentrations of enemy equipment.
It is designed to strike even deeply buried bunkers. It should be understood that for this missile, there are even more interesting targets now than the Crimean Bridge. And we're talking about a large number of air bases, particularly in the territory currently occupied in Ukraine.
The warhead of the missile weighs almost half a ton, and it has a tandem charge. That is, the first part penetrates the ground, concrete structures, or armored barriers. And the second part explodes inside the target, which practically leaves no chance for the enemy.
It can be programmed for either an airburst or an underground detonation. In the case of an airburst, both charges explode simultaneously. So in a way, it's a unique missile.
The missile also has several guidance systems for targeting, which makes it an extremely precise weapon. The stormshadow is equipped with inertial H satellite and DISMAC systems.
Here, the GPS system is shown. This is the navigation that constantly adjusts the missile's flight to ensure it travels in the correct direction. Because if it maneuvers between mountains, then a matter of tens of meters is crucial to ensure it doesn't crash into a hill, like Russian missiles that have hit houses and small hills.
Another extraordinary capability of the stormshadow that experts highlight is its invulnerability to Russian air defense systems. This is implemented in a straightforward, simple manner. The altitude at which the missile approaches the target is 30-40 meters above the Earth's surface.
It is, let's say, a universal missile in its own right, which will allow the Ukrainian armed forces to effectively neutralize the crimes of the Russian air defense on occupied territories. The combined guidance system allows it to bypass air defenses. It should be noted that, well, let's say this cruise missile flies at low altitudes at very low levels, carefully skirting around the terrain. That is, it is effectively outside the range of Russian air defenses.
On radar, such an object remains simply invisible. And even in the case of acoustic detection of the missile, the systems won't have time to destroy it manually.
Russian air defense systems, including the conditionally modern ones like the S-400 and others, have the capability to detect and destroy objects flying at low and ultra-low altitudes starting from a threshold of 40 meters. This means that this missile is effectively out of reach of Russian air defenses.
And here Western designers managed to combine, as they say, the pleasant with the useful. The fact is that flying at such an altitude over the terrain requires constant altitude adjustment. Therefore, this route is pre-planned. And it can serve as an additional guide for the missile if the enemy manages to jam some of the navigation systems. For example, with electronic warfare complexes.
The missile flies at an altitude of 30-40 meters. That is, the radio altimeter is constantly working to ensure that the missile does not come into contact with the surface. At the same time, it scans the terrain and compares it with the data stored in the database. In this way, it duplicates the inertial navigation system and GPS.
At the same time, the missile is capable of reaching speeds of up to 1,000 kilometers per hour. With a total weight of 1,300 kilos and a warhead of 450 kilo, it can fly a distance of up to 300 kilometers. It is slightly over 5 meters long with a wingspan of about 3 meters. The stormshadow remains invisible to the enemy with an operational flight altitude of 30-40 meters. But its effectiveness is best demonstrated not by its specifications but by facts. Just this month, the stormshadow has already made its mark at the Sevastopol ship repair plant.
Smoke rising there. From my yard, you can see the glow over there.
There, by the way, it managed to destroy the landing ship Minsk, and for the first time, cruise missiles penetrated a Russian submarine worth about $300 million. Among the latest achievements of the British storms is the strike on the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol.
So it has begun. Explosions. Explosions there at explosions in the city center.
It is known that at the moment of impact, a meeting was taking place inside. According to preliminary information, as a result of the attack, at least 9 officers of the fleet's command staff were eliminated. The number of injured is being clarified.
Missiles go.
The number of these missiles in Ukraine's arsenal is naturally not disclosed, but the regular explosions in the still occupied Crimea and their announced continuation by the head of the main intelligence directorate, Kirilo Budanov, suggest that Western weaponry is far from running out. Did you like this video? Then subscribe to our channel and don't forget to give it a thumbs up. This will definitely help us grow, and you won't miss new episodes of Arsenal. Explosions in Moscow. In the Moscow region, and in the regions of Russia.
Crazy to think, just crazy. It's like a never-ending fireworks display. Unbelievable.
And this is just the events of the past few months. Russia is no longer unreachable by airstrikes. Drones and missiles, which repeatedly bypass air defense systems, strike warehouses, factories, airfields, and other military targets. Officially, Ukraine does not acknowledge that it is operating on Russian territory. However, yes, everyone beyond the border has long understood Ukraine possesses weapons capable of reaching even the Kremlin. One of the recent examples of successful work by Ukrainian long-range missiles was another explosion in Crimea, which destroyed a Russian S-400 air defense system. 400 there, the force as well, a strike.
There was an entire division. The strike was on the division. There were quite serious losses. Everything is visible in the video. As of now, this division has ceased its operations. Yes, they will be restoring it, replacing vehicles, systems, but it is deactivated.
Scarlet Doctor and the mysterious...
Later, information emerged about what the strike was carried out with. There are, however, few specifics so far. It is only known that it is a Ukrainian-made missile, the development of which has been ongoing for the last 2.5 years.
The missile was new. The missile was absolutely modern. Its use demonstrated that our defense industry complex, our program that was started in 2020, is indeed our new product that has proven itself in a remarkable manner, absolutely flawlessly.
Considering that the missile was likely launched from the Odessa region and the impact occurred near Cape Takhankut, the range of this Ukrainian development is at least 200 kilometers. Additionally, the missile evidently handles enemy radar and air defense systems well. These characteristics allow it to strike absolutely all targets in the occupied part of mainland Ukraine, and from certain points in the Kharkiv region, if necessary, the entire Belgorod region and cities like Kursk and Voronezh could be targeted. Another missile, the use of which Western partners do not restrict over Russian territory, IKI, is the S-200 complex. Despite its rather respectable age, as its development began back in the mid-60s, the missile is quite suitable for the tasks of today's war. Firstly, it exists. Secondly, there are possibilities for its modernization. And thirdly, considering its ballistic flight trajectory, Russian air defense systems are practically helpless against it.
Some of these missiles were made for specific purposes, delivering nuclear strikes with a special warhead capable of effectively and efficiently targeting large aircraft formations. Part of the missiles was made for long range. Long range means 246 kilometers for a maneuvering target. For a steadily flying target like a bomber, well, there, the Tu-95 we could intercept at a distance of 300 kilometers and more.
When it comes to destroying ground targets, these distances practically double in terms of effectiveness significantly in comparison to other methods. The main problem was the outdated guidance system. It limited both the flight range and the accuracy of the strike. But according to Western analysts, Ukrainian engineers have solved this problem. And now the flight range of the S-200 is only limited by the fuel supply.
If the missile gains high speed and exits the airspace, meaning where there is little air and thus little resistance, and this missile can do that, then it can cover a fairly large distance. Approximately 500 kilometers for such a missile is absolutely possible.
Even if limited to a distance of 500 kilometers, it is quite sufficient to destroy concentrations of equipment and Russian military forces throughout Belarus, strike military targets in dozens of Russian regions, and make military factories in Tambov, Ryazan, Kaluga, and of course Moscow possible targets. Not only with missiles, drones have indeed rightfully taken one of the most important roles in this war in terms of striking the enemy deep in the rear. And while Russia is indeed spending the remaining savings of its savings on purchasing Iranian drones, Ukraine has fully launched the production of its own drones. For example, on June 20th in Sergiev Posad near Moscow, there was an explosion at the Tambov, a powder plant. Local authorities immediately stated that the cause of the explosion was employee negligence.
The version involving an attack by an unmanned aerial vehicle was not confirmed.
Ukraine also officially did not acknowledge that it was their doing, the incident. However, a few hours after the explosion in the Moscow region, the spokesperson for Ukroboronprom, Natalia Sad, published a photo of herself with the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Valery Zaluzhny, the commander of the air forces and the CEO of Ukroboronprom, with a rather telling caption.
After the successful use of a drone over 1,000 kilometers. In fact, this is the achievement of a huge number of people, without exaggeration, heroes of the defense industry.
With such a flight range, the drone could end up, say, in Samara, in Altai, in Kazan, Yaroslavl, Tver, and even in the homeland of the bunker, in St. Petersburg. But the range of our weapons' impact is determined not only by technical characteristics, but also, as the head of our intelligence says, by the ability to work creatively. The recent nighttime arrivals in Kursk are further confirmation of this.
Oh damn, those videos that are on the social media networks, you can very clearly hear distinctive sounds, and more. Sounds of drone movement, most likely drones. It goes ta-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. There is now the possibility to do this in different ways. For example, with the help of possibly rocket beds, but most likely the majority are still drones.
The flight range of Ukrainian drones was just over 100 kilometers. But what an effect, certainly.
Officially, the authorities, of course, the Russian authorities report that there are no casualties or damage, that everything was shot down, everything suppressed, the air defense system, but 12 explosions, I must tell you, that's very, very many.
According to preliminary information, 4 fighter jets were hit at the airfield. Su-30, 1 MiG-29, 2 Pantsir anti-aircraft missile systems and radars for the S-300 installation, after which the surviving equipment was moved to Olenia airfield.
The fact is, yes, we can't reach them in Olenia for now. Although the key word is for now, the flight time of a missile launched from the Olenia area and the flight time of missiles launched from those airfields from which we drove them out is quite a significant difference. The more time from launch to the missile's arrival, the greater the chances for our air forces to shoot down the missile.
In addition to the unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, and missiles known to us, designers do not stop developing new strike systems, experts say, such as. Most of these projects are classified, but it can already be stated that our Ukroboronprom has focused on the production of long-range weapons.
Cruise missiles, in case they are modified for firing at targets on the shore, such as Harpoon or Neptune. We had anti-radiation missiles. HARM, which can also be utilized. They are utilized for firing at radar stations, such as those in military operations.
These developments, Okreidras, are exactly what will assist in the liberation of Crimea.
We have the capability to strike any part of the temporarily occupied Autonomous Republic of Crimea.
Additionally, Ukrainian long-range weapons allow the armed forces of Ukraine to operate directly on the aggressor's territory to deprive the enemy of rear supplies and logistics as much as possible.
Every night in the European region of the Russian Federation, almost, explosions occur.
And this trend will undoubtedly and significantly increase over time. Well, subscribe to our channel to stay updated with our latest content. And don't forget to like. This will definitely help us grow, and you absolutely won't miss the latest exciting new episodes of Arsenal.